everyone. My name is Cliff Odell, and I'm here today to interview multi-talented artist Clara Voyant. Clara has just released a new EP, so today we'll be mostly focused on the musical aspect of their endeavors. So, without further ado, let's meet our guest. Good day, Clara.
Hi, it's me, Clara. Sup? Some of you've already heard my voice before. This is normal. No need to panic.
Right. You have a lovely voice.
Aw,
We've
thanks.
heard you sing before. Sometimes Clara Voyant does stream on Twitch, and you can hear them sing there, including
Sometimes.
karaoke.
Often.
Often, yes. All right, so our first question is a bit of an obvious one, but it's still important. How long have you been playing and composing music?
Oh boy! I've been playing music since I was 6. That was when I learned to play piano. But, as for composing music, that was a few years after. Like, when I made my first thing when I was 12, technically. And then the rest was all self-learning, from learning audio workstations to doing all those audio effects. That was all self-taught over the years. I've gotten somewhere. Not sure where, but I've gotten somewhere.
Wow. You've produced quite a bit of music, so I would definitely say you've gotten somewhere, and you're in a good place at that. You're a bit prolific, I'd say, these days.
These days. Yeah, I'm planning to do more.
Do you happen to recall that first composition you mentioned when you were 12?
Oh god. The original is gone. I don't even remember how it sounds anymore, but it was a piano composition named Winter Rose. I could play it, and I was practicing it a lot, and then I lost the sheet music. None of you will ever hear that piece ever again, myself included.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Oh well, lost luck. It's gone to the ether.
Can you recall maybe another early composition?
No. That's a good question. I don't remember any of my other compositions. I tried, but I never really had time as a child because I was mostly made to focus on school and related things, so I didn't really have time to work on music. But now I have a little more space to do music things.
How would you say your style has evolved through the years of your music writing?
Like, clearly my first compositions were all piano. But when I got my hands on music making software, I could start throwing other instruments in there that I really liked. So it's mostly a thickening of the sound, if that makes sense. Like, oh, there are more instruments I could play with. Let's shove them all into one track and see how that goes.
Well, that does make sense, yes.
Yeah, and these days I'm working on getting more complex with how I work with each, now that I have more brain space to work with. Yeah, I want to see how much more complex I can get. I'm clearly not at the level where I'm using time signatures no one's heard of, but one step at a time. Maybe in several years I'll get there. Maybe I'll make a 7/14 composition. Who knows? I don't.
Those time signatures can be quite tricky. Speaking even as a non-musician, I know a little bit about it, and they can get quite intricate. I'm not sure how they keep track of it playing live, let alone composing.
I'm a musician, and any time signature with 2 digits scares me.
Oh, see. Well, I know you just released a new EP, so tell us the story behind this newest release that you've done.
Oh. So, technically, I started working on this last year, somewhere in November, December. That was when the first track was kind of trying to push its way into existence. But it was having a bit of a rough time. I was having a bit of a rough time. So it kind of sat there for a while until I got the track properly solidified sometime in January. It was also a time when I was when I wasn't very happy with how my brain was working. I won't get into details, but my brain is not at full capacity. There are these things that get in my way. So those are what mostly built. So those thoughts are what built up how I compose each track in the EP. By the way, it's out now.
Yes, yes. And why don't you go ahead and tell us where you can find that? We'll repeat it again at the end of the interview, but for our listeners that only have limited amount of time, where can they find your new EP?
You can get the files on my Ko-fi. You can also stream it a few times in Bandcamp and also buy it there. Spotify release is also coming soon, as well as the release on Apple Music and other platforms where music is sold.
You can find that under Clairvoyant.
Yep. All Clairvoyant. Please spell it correctly. That is Clara ending with an A, because apparently there is another artist named Clairvoyant. No, that's not me. Clara, spelled with an A. Yep. It would be really funny if I found them and we did a collab together, but someday, maybe.
People wonder if you're some sort of weird set of twins. So back to early music influences in your life and how you approached music from a young age. What sort of instruments did you learn to play, and which instruments would you like to learn to play in the future?
I was formally taught to play piano. I only got to grade 2 until I started self-learning it. And then after that, I self-learned the recorder. I have a melodica that I can kind of play. Wait, I'm missing something. Hang on, there's something I'm missing. I can play the lyre, those cheap lyres you can get off of online stores. I can also kind of play the guitar. Not very well, but I've been self-learning.
So that's an impressive list, a very varied list at that.
Oh right, there's the kalimba too. But yeah, I want
drum.
It's how do I explain it? It's an instrument that's composed of a wooden box with metal tines, and if you pluck a tine with your fingernail, it makes a tone, and each tine corresponds to a note. There are pictures of them online.
Yes, I know what you mean now. I think I had forgotten that term for it, or that name for it.
Yeah.
I do know what you mean now. It's a neat little instrument.
Yes.
Which is your favorite of all these?
Piano.
Or say another instrument.
Piano would be my favorite. Also the thing I'm best at. Because for the rest, I've been self-taught, so I don't quite know what I'm doing. But for the piano, I had the benefit of having an actual teacher, as well as lots of resources for the piano online. So if I'm lost, there's almost a guarantee that I can pick something up and that I can search it up online and there might be an answer.
And speaking of the piano, do you compose your music on the piano, or is it mostly just come together in your head? Or is it sort of a mix of both? Something else?
It mostly comes together in my head. I briefly considered composing on the piano, as in throwing chords on there. But since the instruments I compose with in electronically, like on the workstation, they aren't piano, they're guitars, they're drums, so it's not as intuitive. Maybe for some cases I would use the piano, like for my first EP, I composed one directly on the piano. But for the most part, no, I don't use the piano. Maybe in the future I will, just to see how different it feels. But for now, nope, it's all in my head. And I put it on the workstation and hope it works out.
I did spend some time at around musicians at an art school, and so many of them swore by composing via the piano. So that's fascinating and interesting to hear that you do most of it in your head. That's impressive.
Thanks. Yeah, I've heard of lots of musicians saying it's easy to compose on piano because of because you can hit all the semitones, and it's also just visually intuitive. I take it a step forward and just not think about the keys anymore, just think about sound, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, I think.
Yeah, I am not a musician myself, so I'm more on the spectrum of how does the sound reverberate in my ears? Do I like it or not? I don't get into the technicalities as much. And it's a very interesting process. Yeah, that you have there.
If it works, it works.
Can you tell us about?
Go on, sorry.
Yes, absolutely. If it works, it works. Absolutely. I'm curious to hear about any musical influences that you may have.
Oh boy. Musical influences. I will not remember them all right now. There are a bunch. But for this particular EP, I'm taking influences from a band called Elaine. There's also a bit of Nightwish, but that's in all of my music. There's Sandria. There's... can't remember them all. It's just it's mostly a bunch of symphonic metal bands and a bit of video game music. Yeah. Composers from the FromSoft games. From the final Nobuo Uematsu. As then again, he is a kind of a constant across all of my compositions.
Okay.
Those are everyone I can remember at the moment.
It's very nice to see, even with movies these days, it's very nice to see soundtrack to various media getting their due and respect, because there is so much good music and talent out in that sphere. It's the shame that it used to just be dismissed as something just in the background, where there actually is a lot of amazing content out there for soundtracks.
I wish I could remember all of my inspirations, because they deserve to be recognized, but alas, my brain is limited. Someday I will write them down properly and credit them properly if ever I do this again.
Duly noted.
Hopefully.
Is there any other artists or even say pieces of music or art that you wish to mention that have impacted you or that you really enjoy? Say a favorite.
Actually, there is one very specific song that has impacted me for both of my EPs. If I recall correctly, the artist is called The Abyss Inside Us, and the one song I'm talking about is Lullaby. It's a post-rock track, and it features a music box, and that has clearly stuck around my mind a lot.
Music box song.
Yes, it's post-rock with music box, and it's called Lullaby, so that I guess it's clear why there's a music box in there. I do enjoy some post-rock, but that's the artist that sticks out to me the most.
That's a very interesting answer. I would not have expected to hear a music box. That's great. What an interesting place to get inspiration and enjoyment from.
Yeah, in my fourth track, that's where you can hear his influence most clearly, because I was using a music box and glockenspiel over metal.
And for our listeners who may not know what a glockenspiel is, please elaborate.
I'm fairly sure most people here understand what a xylophone is. So a glockenspiel is a smaller version with metal bars instead of wood, and it sounds like a bell when hit. It's also called a bell lyre in some places.
Oh. I've heard of a glockenspiel, but I've only not have heard of that lyre variant. Interesting.
Oh, it's just a name. Here in my leg of the world, it's just called a lyre. But I prefer to call it the glockenspiel because there are two kinds of lyres that the world knows of now, and I don't want to confuse anyone or myself.
Understandable. You see, out here in the West, we know the lyre, I think, as far as the handheld harp type of instrument.
Yes. And I have to specify which one I'm talking about when I mention it here. But go on.
Getting back to the EP and not so much the composition aspect of writing music, but the production end of this process. And how does that go for you as far as producing your music and releasing it?
Since I self-learned everything I know about production and post-production, it is excruciating. I think
Oh no.
post-production is the thing that takes up most of my energy. Partially because I compare myself to people with actual post-production studios. I don't have a post-production studio, it's all me. So my sound might not be as polished as they can make it, but I try.
What sort of challenges have you come across in the production process? Or is it
Oh,
just a little too technical to get into?
to put it in the least technical way, it's the main problem I have is that the tools I have aren't as sophisticated as I'd like them to be, and I have to push them to the limit to get the sound I want.
I can see that being a challenge.
For professional, let's say compressors as an example, professional compressors would have more bells and whistles to tweak, more ways to tweak the sound. I have to deal with free plugins, and that's all I'm gonna get. And I have to experiment a lot just to get it to do what I want it to do. Don't get me wrong, lots of free plugins are pretty great at what they do. It's just that they're not as intuitive as they could be.
And how is the online portion of the production process and, say, releasing material?
Let's see. It's very simple, actually. I hand over my music to a distributor. They say, okay, we'll review your release for like a specified amount of time here. We'll email you if something happens. I'm not gonna get too into the weeds about things that could go wrong in that process, but it's mostly out of my hands. It's in the hands of the distributor at that point. And all I can do at that point is wait and hope nothing goes wrong. But that's for distributors that upload it to music stores. In the case of my Bandcamp and Ko-fi, I have full control, so I can just upload things whenever I want.
It must be very nice to have that option.
Yeah. It is, for most independent artists, the only option.
Yes, understandable. Which part of being a musician is your favorite? Composing, playing, or the lifestyle?
What lifestyle? I don't do the musician lifestyle. It's mostly me hunkered down in front of a laptop most of the time. But my favorite part is discovering new things about new things that I can do with what I have. Believe it or not, there is a large community of people who just give away sounds and digital instruments for free, and I may have spent more time than I probably should digging through all of the things they have to offer and pulling out the perfect sound out of a pile of things I don't really need at the moment. It's fun. And sometimes I discover really good things for free. Of course.
It's wonderful. People do put out that content for free.
Yep, it is great. Of course, I don't always find the thing I need for free. Sometimes I am forced to buy plugins, but both the free things I've found and the plugins I've found are pretty great. And it's nice to experiment with them once in a while, see what I can do with them.
Yeah, I'm sure you've probably come across some new instruments or say even a whole new song just based on some free sounds that were put out there, I imagine.
Yep. It's on YouTube, but I did manage to find some free sounds of a cicada and made a beat on it. It's on YouTube right now, I think. I'm not quite sure if I still kept it. No, I think I uploaded it normally. It's right there in my channel. Under Clairvoyant. Still my name on YouTube.
Oh, check out their YouTube channel, listeners.
Check it out. I exist on YouTube. Do it.
And speaking of being a musician, what part, if any, do you dislike about being a musician?
This might be a spicy question to answer. What don't I like? There's this weird culture around being an online musician that I don't really vibe with. How do I explain this? It's like most spaces on the online music making most spaces for online musicians are pretty great, pretty chill. But there are some spaces that are very aggressive towards one another, very unfriendly to others, very competitive too. I don't really vibe with that, and it's upsetting to find a possible new platform or a possible new group of musicians that I could possibly connect with and realize, oh no, they're not very friendly. They're not the kinds of musicians Mr. Rogers would like.
That's one way to put it. Can't play nice in class. We'll play outside, right?
I may be a bit of a what's the word? I may be a bit of a killjoy like that, but they just don't vibe with me.
Hey, that's everyone's right to choose how they wish to interact with the social aspect of the internet.
I suppose.
It's not everyone's taste, or sometimes it takes some digging to find a good community, but that's unfortunate to hear. There's some issues like that, but I suppose that's about any community out there anymore.
Perhaps
online.
that, and it might just be a me problem.
Do you have a favorite song out of your catalog? I know you're writing multiple different genres, so it's okay to choose more than one if you wish.
Actually, I've uploaded it on YouTube too. Currently, my favorite song that I've ever made is Insomnia from this very EP, from the very EP we were supposed to be talking about.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I somehow made it 8 minutes, and it's still my favorite sounding one.
Any more detail on that, or is that all you wish to say? Which is fine, if it is.
Fun fact about Insomnia, I was mostly composing it late at night, and I was getting real tired, and I had only made like the first minute of it, and I was getting too tired to continue, so I struggled to write the chorus melody, if you can call it that, because there are no lyrics, chorus melody on a piece of paper, and went right to sleep. And It was a mess, but I somehow still parsed it properly the next day. Managed to put it in the workstation, and it came out all right. Also,
That's lovely.
insomnia in particular. Well, judging by the name, it is about, you guessed it, insomnia. Not being able to sleep, even though you really, really want to. Probably need to too.
I think many of our listeners can sympathize with that condition. I know I can. I have listened to the EP once through, but I will pay more attention to insomnia next time through and see if I can pick up on any of those just desperate for sleep vibes that you must have put into that tune.
Yep. It does end pretty hopefully, so at some point, maybe, some of us will get some sleep. Some proper sleep.
Fingers crossed for all of us. What are your future plans for music? Is there another EP on the horizon?
I do have some EPs in idea form, but they will have to be shoved aside for now. What I'm thinking of doing is making a single and seeing where that goes. It's going to be more clearly gothic in flavor, but it is there. I am thinking of beats and such. I don't know when it's going to be done. Most likely this year, of course, but keep an eye out for that.
Oh, we will.
Or in the year.
What about a full album? You going to try that at some point? Or maybe even a concept album?
Full album seems like a lot to deal with at the moment, so no, I mean, I do have ideas for a full album, but I don't think I'll be able to do any of that very soon. So it's just, and I do have to take baby steps, so one thing at a time. But an album is not an impossibility. Someday I will do one.
Any tease you can give us on this? Or it's too much in the development stage still?
Yeah, it is way too deep into development, so there isn't much I can say. But I might drop hints every now and then while making it.
All right, fair enough. We'll keep an eye out for those hints and see what we can sort of construe from there. Do you have any live shows planned for the future? Do you play live at all?
No. I considered it, but thought, I'm a digital composer. How would I do a live show? That and I have awful stage fright. I don't know how I do on stage. So, if a live show does happen, if it'll take some fancy planning to figure out, but it may happen. I was actually supposed to perform this month, but the event didn't fall through. I wasn't gonna perform my own thing. I was gonna perform some J-Rock. On
piano or?
On the piano, if it was possible, but no, event didn't happen. So maybe some other time. Who knows?
All right, let's deviate from music for a moment. And let's hear a little bit about other mediums you work in. I know, like I said earlier, you're a multi-talented artist. Let's hear about some of your other mediums.
I try. I am an artist. I do paintings digitally and traditionally. Actually, right now I even have a wood panel drying so that I can paint on it too. Yes, for digital paintings, I mostly draw fantasy characters and fantasy stuff. And for traditional, my mediums include watercolor, acrylics, and oil. And graphite.
Watercolor.
Yes.
Always a challenge for me.
It is
Graphite.
hard.
Oh.
It is hard to wrap one's head around watercolor, but some people can grasp it really easily, and I think that's cool.
Is there any crossover between how you approach and or interact with the various mediums you work in?
Good question. Hmm. The as in terms of production, like actually using the techniques I use in painting and music and vice versa, I don't think there's much overlap in that way, since they honestly are so different. But in terms of genre, in terms of style, then yeah, there is some overlap between the two. Especially in terms of subject. I do sometimes like to think of abstract things in music, and that leads into some of my art too. Abstraction, symbolism, stuff like that.
Oh, so that makes sense. Yeah, speaking from some knowledge of other artists that work in multi-mediums, sometimes you can see similar imagery or themes between all the different mediums and works.
Yeah, it's a common thing amongst lots of people who do multimedia work.
Yeah, I find that fascinating because I'm mostly myself just a bit talented. I say just a bit with writing, and it just fascinates me to see how an artist can grab all these different mediums and blend them all together, or like I said, similar theme or imagery
Yes,
throughout the work.
the blender of creation.
It's a fascinating thing to me.
Throw all the ideas into the blender of creation. What comes out? We have no idea.
You could have your fans remember one thing about you. What would it be?
Really good question. I don't know. I leave it to everyone else to remember something about me. I don't like. I don't try to think about how I'll be remembered. I just throw myself out there and let people decide. So, to answer that question, massive, I don't know. Figure it out.
Yeah, up to the individual user.
Yep. I don't
I guess
know.
I should say end user.
I don't know what you're gonna remember out of me, but hopefully it's a good thing and not something embarrassing. Or something embarrassing. If it is sufficiently funny, then that's fine.
I appreciate it's the artists that don't take themselves super seriously all the time is an admirable trait, I think. Speaking of, a couple of more questions before we wrap it up today. Apples or oranges?
Apples. Oranges have betrayed me more than once. I'll still eat an orange. I just remember what it did to me.
What about daytime versus nighttime?
Nighttime. I don't know. I just vibe with nighttime a lot. Even though these days I'm strictly mostly a daytime creature. But the nighttime is nice. The stars are out at night. The moon is out at night. It's nice. It's nice to see them.
So I find many of the artists I've known throughout my life usually get their best work done at nighttime as well. It seems to bring out that in people.
Yeah, there are so much less distractions at nighttime. So I think that's the main thing.
All right. Well, where can people find you? What are your socials?
I am most active on Twitter at twitter.com/shotgunrunner0. No spaces, no underscores. You can also find me on Instagram, shotgunrunner0, but there's an underscore between the words and the 0, so shotgunrunner_0. I should have just said that in the first place. I'm also on Twitch, shotgunrunner0_0. I stream 3 times a week, or at least I try to, so you can hear me talk there and maybe sing.
We also have the aforementioned YouTube channel as well.
Yes,
where
the YouTube channel is Clairvoyant. That's Clara with an A. So find me there. My icon on YouTube is still a portrait, I believe. So, and there's only one of me there.
Where can folks purchase your music?
All right, my music. So there is the Bandcamp page. Shotgunrunner.bandcamp.com. There is no zero in Bandcamp on Bandcamp. That is where you can buy both of my EPs. You can also buy both of my EPs on my Ko-fi. Ko-fi.com/shotgunrunner. That you can also buy a bunch of other things in my shop from there if music's not the only thing you're looking for. Someday, my first EP, Time, is on Spotify. Clairvoyant, again, same name. Second EP is still on the way.
All right, well, thank you for those. Go ahead and check those sites out, listeners. I'm sure you will not be disappointed. And I know for myself, the Twitch channel that Clara runs is a lot of fun. Always something interesting going on over there, and they do stream quite often during the week.
8 times a week, maybe more if I have the energy.
All right, well, thank you, Clara, for taking the time to chat today.
Thanks for the interview, Cliff. This was fun.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, we wish you nothing but the best on the new release, and we are already looking forward to seeing what your next project is.
I will do my best, and I will talk about it once things come together a little more.
Yes, please do. Please throw out some teasers and hints for us on your social medias, and we'll be anxiously awaiting to see what you come up with.
Yeah, follow my pages. I'll most likely let something slip on there, either accidentally or on purpose.
We'll keep our eyes peeled. Well, thank you again, Clara. You have a lovely day now.
You have a lovely day too. I'm gonna go pet some cats in a bit.
All right. Well, thanks, listeners, for tuning in, and we'll see you perhaps another time.
Bye!